What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, if you can't tell, it is hot. And so we got a quick one for you guys today, but we have a very important one that I know you guys are gonna be able to take into your garden, instantly use to not only help you to conserve water, which on a day like this, boy, that's important, but it also helps your plants grow better, loosens the soil over time, adds organic material, and we're talking all about the method of core gardening. Let's go. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what is core gardening? I want to bring you guys up to speed if you've never heard of core gardening before. It is a method of gardening that applies using straw as a sponge to hold on to water in your soil. Now, we've used core gardening for about the past 7-8 years in our garden. It has given us the best results we've ever had, and it's a method of gardening that thousands of people have applied to their garden and have wrote in saying that it's changed the way they garden. Not only, like I said, with water conservation, on a day like this, conserving water is so important. We'll talk more on that as we go, but also increasing the overall organic material, the softness of their soil, the moisture holding capabilities of their soil, but also the aeration and the fertility of their soil, all can be helped with core gardening. Now, core gardening was an adaptation off of a gardening method, an actual agricultural method that was practiced in Sub-Saharan regions of Africa. There in Africa, they have a lot of Sahara grass. There's not a lot of wood material. There's not a lot of organic material. And so what they would do, because it's Sub-Saharan, it's semi-desert, is they would chop down a lot of that Sahara grass. They would bale it up, and then they would bury it in trenches in the soil. They'd mound the soil up. Over time, that would settle, but what it would do is the water, when it was rainy, would be soaked into the Sahara grass, and then due to capillary action, that's the process of trying to move water from an area of excess water to an area of less water, a drier area, it would actually help to conserve moisture in the soil, and the plants could tap into that water reservoir throughout the drier months. And so that is then what I looked at when I was reading about it, and I said, well, we don't really have Sahara grass here, but we do have straw, and straw is very similar. And so I applied straw, and to my amazement, it was single-handedly the best gardening method we ever used. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty on what core gardening is. The first thing you want to do is get yourself some straw. So when it comes to straw, you can get it a variety of different ways. My preferred way is to not buy it. It's to go along the streets just after Halloween, Thanksgiving time. People have thrown it out at the roads, and one man's trash is another man's treasure. I'll pick it out of the trash, and I'll bring it home, and what we'll do is we'll let it sit over winter. Now, this straw is going in the ground right now because this bed needed a refresh pretty desperately, and we're gonna be planting our fall crops, and I wanted to just get it in the bed so that it was there. And I find that if I use fresh straw like this, we ended up going and buying this. If we use fresh straw, it'll still be there in the spring for our spring crops as well. So it won't be too bad. But what happens when you let it sit over winter is that straw starts to kind of break down, and it breaks down that waxy outer coating, which kind of repels water. The more kind of punky and rotted that straw is, yes, the faster it's going to decompose in your soil, but the better it's going to be at holding on to water. And so I find getting it in the fall, letting it sit over winter, and then applying it in the spring works great. But every crop is going to benefit from core gardening, every single one. Doesn't matter if it's potatoes, doesn't matter if it's carrots, every single crop is going to be great. Now, I know you're asking this question. What about safe straw? Where do you get safe straw? The reason why a lot of people are concerned with safe straw is because straw is very commonly treated with a chemical. It's a broad spectrum herbicide known as Grazon. Now, Grazon is, in a lot of cases, not a concern for me, simply because in this area of Michigan, many farmers are not even allowed to use Grazon due to the proximity we are to Lake Huron. Because the Great Lakes region there's a lot of regulations around using Grazon, so I'm not terribly worried about it. But getting to know your farmer, getting to know the source, going around some local farmers that are cutting straw and just asking them if they use Grazon, really simple way. But also nowadays, a lot of farmers don't use Grazon simply because it's gotten such a bad rep over the years that a lot of farmers just don't even use it. So it's not as much a concern for me anymore as it used to be. So take that with what it's worth, but I just don't find it that big of a concern. All right, so once you got in your straw, next thing you do is dig a trench. Now this is by far the most labor intensive part of the whole process, but I'll tell you what, way worth it. The reason why we want to dig a trench is because we want to get the straw down deep enough to where we're down below what's considered the rhizosphere. The rhizosphere is the top about 2 to 3 inches of soil. That area of soil dries out the fastest. It's the most exposed to sunlight, it's the most exposed to wind and things like that. And so the lower you can go, the more water is going to be down there, and the damper this straw is going to stay longer, acting as that water reservoir for your plants. And so we want to dig a trench that's typically going to be about 8 to 10 inches deep by about 10 inches wide. So if you think about it, we're going to apply, 10 inches wide, 10 inches deep, the whole length of the bed. And what that's going to do is once we lie the straw in this trench, it's going to wick moisture. It's going to wick moisture out, and up. Wherever that dry soil is, it's going to wick. And so you don't need to do the whole bed, it's just a trench. And I find in this 3-foot bed here, one 10-inch by 10-inch trench is plenty enough to get this whole bed nice and watered, or keep it nice and watered, I should say. And so we're gonna finish this trench up here, and then we're gonna get ready to line the straw in the trench. One final question I know you all are gonna ask is, what about weeds, Luke? Should I be concerned about weeds? The answer is no. The reason why is there's very few weed seeds in straw bales. Straw is a byproduct of harvesting oats, and so a lot of times, the actual nutritional content of the harvest is taken off, and so you have hay and you have straw. There's not a lot of seed here. There might be some, but very few. And so I'm not that worried about weed seeds either. Take that for what it's worth. There might be some, but in an organic garden, this is going to pay huge dividends. So we are now putting the straw into the trench. We're on the home stretch. It's that simple. What we're going to do is we're going to peel off a flake. Now I love doing it. It's just really satisfying, but I find a flake works great. Each flake we basically peel off kind of like a perfect little amount. Then I can layer that into the trench. Now these naturally will kind of find a flake point, and that flake point is roughly about that much straw. I'd say it's maybe, 8 inches of straw or so. And I take that flake, I use about a half a straw bale per raised bed. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna step it down. We wanna compact that straw. It's really important we compact it. If it's not compacted, you're gonna have a lot of air gaps and you're gonna have problems. So what we wanna do is we wanna compact this down, really press it into the trench. Might be a little bit too much here. A little too much on that one. Move that one over here. There we go. Whoa. We wanna get that down in the trench, nice and compact. All right, and the final step is once you've got it nice and compacted down inside the trench, final thing is just covering it back up. So we're gonna take this soil here that's on the side, just cover it back up. Now, a lot of you ask, well, won't this take nitrogen from the soil? The answer is yes. This will rob some nitrogen from the soil as it's breaking down. So what they would do to combat that is they would apply chicken manure. Chicken manure is really high in nitrogen, but any fertilizer you add is going to have lots of nitrogen, and that's going to help reduce the amount of nitrogen sequestration that's going to happen as this is breaking down. Second thing you guys ask is, well, are you going to plant right on top of it? The answer is yes. You're going to be able to plant right on top of it. Because we put this down in the trench and we're mounding the dirt back on top, there's going to be a slight berm. That's entirely fine. As the straw breaks down, it's going to settle, but it's going to allow us to plant here, here, and here, giving us full exposure to the bed. It's just the biggest benefit is we have this sponge down the center of the raised bed that's going to save us like 80 to 90% on water consumption. That is amazing. And there you go. There is core gardening in a nutshell. It is super simple, super quick to do in the garden. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of work, absolutely. If you're expecting to have a garden and not have work, well then, I don't know what to tell you. But I can say that this does save us a lot of work in the long run. Save us a ton of work on getting organic material, because as this breaks down, it's gonna naturally fill the bed up with nice compost. Is it gonna save us a lot of work on watering? Absolutely. It's also gonna save us a lot of work on weeding, believe it or not, because the soil is gonna be so loose that pulling weeds is gonna be very simple, very easy to do. And because it's gonna be so fertile, it's gonna allow us to grow more plants in a smaller area, giving us more natural living mulch, which is less room for those weeds to grow. And I know that there's a lot of questions you guys are gonna have. Another question that has come up too is, do you have to wait any amount of time before you can plant? The answer is no. In theory, what I could do is I could soak this down with water right now, let it settle. That's probably best. Let it settle for a day or two, because that'll happen. Once it settles for a day or two, go ahead and plant. Plant whatever you want. Just make sure, it's so important to stress this, make sure you fertilize when you plant. Otherwise, as that straw is breaking down, you're gonna lose nitrogen, and your plants will show some signs of nutrient deficiency. But aside from that, as long as you remember to do that, you're going to be so happy that you use this method. So with that, let me know in the comments box down below if you have tried core gardening and the difference that it's made in your garden. I think it would really help a lot of the people that are on the fence or have never heard of this method to go ahead and try it in their garden. And I know it's made a huge difference in my garden. It's made a huge difference in the results we've had and just how much work it's actually saved us. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.